everyone. Today we are going to be going over my portfolios. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about each one and why I chose to do a portfolio for that specific sort of topic. For me, a portfolio is just kind of showcasing a series of my work. In this case, I'm going to be talking about my photography that I did while in the United Arab Emirates back in September. So here we have the photos, and not everything that I did there was ecological. I actually went there to do to speak at an international conference. So I took pictures of the event itself, and I spoke about telling a story through photography. But while I was there, I actually got to do some really cool wildlife and plant and just general nature photography. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about, is kind of the photos that were in that series and some of what else I did here. Obviously, we got some camel babies, belly dancing, birds, water, because that was unexpected for me. I thought I was going to the desert. I did go to the desert, but there's the Persian Gulf is there, and I didn't think about that. More birds, cats, lots of feral cats, and then some cool trees as well, and me speaking, although I didn't take that photo. So this selection of photos here really just showcases the time that I spent there as a whole. All of the events that were a major part of it, things that really, to me, shouted Dubai, shouted out the culture, the landscape, the architecture, everything like that. But what I was most astounded by was the fact that it was this desert, and yeah, it was very sandy, very hot, like 100+ degrees, which I was really happy about. I love the dry heat, so I was thriving in that climate. But there's an abundance of life there. Biodiversity was crazy. And I thought that that was the most surprising, that even in this really hot, really harsh climate, that there were so many beautiful flowers and plants that were able to survive. In fact, date trees are such a huge source of income in Dubai. So there were lots and lots of date palms, and they would harvest these dates and eat them. And as a dried preserved fruit, you still can get a lot of nutrients from it. So it's okay to have dried fruits. So dates are really popular there and a really important source of nutrients and vegetation then. They also provide nutrients for lots of birds, like the myna. This bird here is the myna bird. At first, I thought that was like some weird robin. It looked like an American robin with like yellow eyeliner and a white tummy. And as I got to know more of its behavior, observed more of them, I was able to kind of use field guides to figure out that it was the myna. Another bird that loves the fruits and the vegetation there, some insects. We've got our hoopie, the common hoopie. I had no idea that's what a hoopie looked like. I'd always heard of a hoopie, but never knew. And then you have even some decorative plants that are used to spruce up the landscape, and that would be your frangipani. I was blown away by the fact that the water was so close to the desert. So there's a portion of water that flows through Old City Dubai, and it's called the creek. So this water here, with all the boats and the buildings along it, that is the creek. And in my head, when I heard, oh yeah, we're going to go to the creek, I thought, oh wow, yeah, like any sort of water you would want to celebrate in a desert, thinking it's just this little tiny ephemeral stream. Cool, whatever. No, it was very wide, about as wide as some portions of the Delaware River here. in between Bucks County and New Jersey. So I was a little surprised by that, taken aback. In fact, these boats here are water taxis. And they take you from one side of the creek to the other because it would take so long to walk around. You just go right across, which was an interesting mode of travel when I told everyone I was going to the desert. I had to take water taxi. And then, due to the fact that we were on the water and there were fish there, you have birds like herons. And this is an Indian heron, not a green or a blue heron like we have here in Pennsylvania. But it was surprising nonetheless for me to see a heron while in the desert. Again, blown away by the biodiversity and being able to see pollinators and seeing all the different plant life from various trees to even flowers. That this flower was a little more succulent in nature, so obviously adapted to heat and low water environment. So the foliage here was a little thicker and a little more rubbery than you would find here in Pennsylvania. It reminded me a little bit of sedum, but a much larger flower. And then you have a Dubai pollinator here, some sort of bee. I was not able to identify it. That was the only one that I saw. And I photographed the flower, not the pollinator. I saw the pollinator afterwards, so I didn't get a good enough photo. And this plant here, I looked at the foliage of it, and as soon as I looked at the foliage, I was able to identify this is some sort of milkweed. Don't know if it's an Asclepias, but it's some sort of milkweed. The venation on the leaves was the same. And lo and behold, this is a giant milkweed. And when I say giant, that's the name of it, but it also was taller than me. So it was, taking pictures of it, the flowers were at eye level. So that was kind of cool to be able to see how milkweeds grow in other parts of the world. Lots of doves. This is a Eurasian collared dove. Apparently laughing doves are also pretty common in the UAE. I'm a little bummed I did not see any nor hear any, and I hear that is what can help you really identify the laughing dove. Makes sense from the name. More mynas, again, loving on the date trees, which I actually found out by talking to some of the natives there that arborists are really important to go up and actually trim the dates off, because the dates, when they get too ripe, the birds can go and they'll destroy the crops because they'll be eating them, and humans want them too. So the arborists will go up and use a handsaw to cut them down, also before they hit people on the head. And that made me kind of excited because my husband is an arborist, and it was really interesting to see how his industry would be kind of changed and used again in other environments. Camels are really important. They're in Dubai. Unfortunately, there aren't many wild camels left in the world, let alone Dubai. However, you have the species of camel, the wild Bactrian camel, is the only wild species left in the world, and this here is a dromedary. But farmed camels is such a huge source of income and milk. Again, milk is really high in nutrients, and it's actually more nutritious than cow milk is. And camels are adapted already to this environment. So if you're trying to look for some sort of livestock that is able to provide a nutritious drink, camels are your way to go. So this is a little baby. Still about as tall as me as a baby. We were able to look each other in the eye, but it was just very interesting going out into the desert, away from the city here and into the really sandy, pure desert environment, and seeing camels in their environment, learning more about camels, about their hump, how they have adapted to low water environments, and how actually their cells, their blood cells, are able to be what allows them to thrive in a desert like this. So stay tuned for blog post coming up about camels specifically, but just something that I was blown away learning more about mammals and creatures that I love. Again, we have our farmed camels. And here you have sunset in the desert. Again, being on the equator or near to the equator than I am, seeing how the sun sets so quickly and the sun itself is so large. If we scroll back down, I believe here the sun itself is just so large, and that's because technically it's closer than it is here in Pennsylvania. Hence it being warmer, and I like it. Falconry used to be a really big use of hunting, and it kind of still is. There still are some native locals who would use falconry to be able to hunt. And so this guy was kind of demonstrating the importance of falconry to the culture there. Here we've got some, these are not wild camels. Again, they are not wild Bactrian camels. However, they are feral camels, which was still kind of cool to see these, giant animals kind of just roaming around on their own. But I, would be really astounding to see true wild camels. And this is not a great photo, but I did include it here in the portfolio. I took it from a car that in the middle of the desert, you can go kind of fast. There's no one really around. We weren't able to stop and get out, but I was just observing it. So it's kind of blurry, not that great, but I really wanted to include it in the portfolio because I felt like it really was able to help show the more feral species or the life that's able to thrive in the desert. Or you look here, the lack thereof. So you have tiny shrubby plants out here in the true desert where there is nobody, there's no buildings. There actually were some camel farms out here, like this precious pumpkin and this one. But how anything survives. I did see one lizard. I was not able to get a good photo because it was at night, which makes sense because most animals in that hot environment, one of the adaptations that they're going to have is to come out at night and be nocturnal when the temperature is a little cooler. Here you can see the actual dates. And this is what a lot of the trees will look like before the dates are removed. So pre-harvest, they have these mesh bags around them to prevent mynas and other birds from eating all of the fruit. Then the arborist will go up, saw it out, and you'll be able to have these yummy dates. So that is my portfolio here from Dubai. These prints are, or most of these are available in my print shop. You can go and check them out, bring any of them home. But I'm just excited to show you what nature and what the environment looks like around the world. This is obviously, I've been to Dubai twice, but this was the first time I was really able to go and explore and photograph it. And so to be able to capture an image, an image is worth 1,000 words, and each photo has a story. But really, my goal here is to share that with others, because I know that this isn't something that a lot of people get to see. Where I grew up, people lived in a bubble, and that's all that there was just this town, this county. And maybe you went to New Jersey for summer vacation, but like traveling was a big deal. And a lot of people didn't get outside of that bubble to be able to explore other cultures. And I want to be able to show and share other cultures with people to create more of a sense of, wow, there's other stuff out there, and to be able to appreciate the world as a whole and how our culture and their culture can come together. We can all live harmoniously. Yay, hippie stuff. Yay, everyone get along. But to appreciate how different ecosystems work and how interconnected everything really is, and how we are connected to stuff in the desert. How, if you think of the water cycle and how water moves around the planet, and the Persian Gulf is part of the water that you see here, as is the Delaware River. So, in a weird sense, the waters all connect, and it's just a wonderful thought in my mind to be able to share a connection with people and help bring awareness of what's going on around the world. So I hope you enjoyed. Again, if you wanted to get any prints, you can head over to my shop. You can also support me on Patreon, and any support would be greatly appreciated so that I can go to more places and be able to share other cultures and other ecosystems with you. Thanks.